TusenFryd is the only large-scale amusement park located in the country of Norway. It's an absolutely gorgeous park home to 8 roller coasters, and today I want to rank them all from worst to best. Now, when I visited for the first time last summer, I was faced with some pretty heavy crowds and slow operations, which is why I unfortunately didn't get on each of the coasters at this park. After riding all the major ones, I instead chose to prioritize some of the non-coaster attractions such as the River Rapids ride and Dark ride. While I do believe I made the right call, it's a shame I couldn't get in all the coasters, as this list may not be 100% complete. So even though I won't be able to review the 3 smallest roller coasters at TusenFryd, I will still try to rank them because I think it's relatively obvious where they'd place. And kicking things off at number 8 is a surprisingly interesting ride, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Minsta, opened in 1996. The reason this coaster is intriguing is because according to the park, this is the smallest roller coaster in the world by footprint. Of course, the experience itself looks pretty underwhelming even as far as kids coasters are concerned. It's literally made up of a turn, a straight section, and a turn, that's it. So even though I never got to do this one, I think we can all agree that it would probably rank at the bottom. Number 7, Hurry Hurry, opened in 2022. Of all the roller coasters I missed, I think this is the one I regret skipping the most. Not because it looks like anything too exciting, but because it's an extremely rare coaster model. Ride manufacturer Zamperla only ever built 3 of these compact spinning coasters, and Hurry Hurry is the only one with this layout. It's got some very modest stats, heights lower than 20 feet and reaching speeds just over 15 miles per hour. But I think it's the fact that you do rotate throughout the ride experience that would make it somewhat engaging. As a matter of fact, if you got a good spin on this one, I think it's possible it maybe deserved to be a spot higher on this list. Let me know in the comments if this ride is a bust or if it's actually a decent little family coaster. Number 6, Western Expressin, opened in 2012. Vekoma has built tons of small roller coasters throughout Europe, and I've actually had the opportunity to experience this exact layout at other parks. From my experience, it's a decent little ride for what it is, with solid forces and thrills for younger guests. It's that perfect coaster for those who want to work their way up to some of the park's bigger attractions. But still, it's not exactly meant for my target audience, so I can only rank it so high. The good news is every other roller coaster in the park I'm happy to say I've ridden, and there's a lot to talk about with many of these attractions. But before we dive in, be sure to give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, and if you'd like to support the channel, subscribing as well as picking up some merchandise from my new Teespring store is the best way to do so. Number 5, Super Splash, opened in 2003. Mack Rides is the king of water coasters, but some of them still don't have the most inspired layouts. Namely, their Super Splash model consists of a small dip, sometimes forwards, sometimes backwards, utilizing a turntable, and then your classic big drop into a splashdown, sometimes with a bunny hill and sometimes without one. Super Splash at TusenFryd does not go backwards, but does feature a hill after the drop, so you win some, you lose some. I will say, the ride has beautiful presentation and is very refreshing on a warm summer day. I also really enjoyed the drop and hill as they have some nice zip to them. It could absolutely afford to be longer, but otherwise, decent family coaster overall. Number 4, Lupin, opened in 1988. The first thrill coaster on this list doubles as the oldest roller coaster in the park. Despite being more than 35 years old, Lupin is running great, and I wasn't expecting that. For context, this is an old Vekoma looping coaster with the same track style as those janky Aero coasters. I've ridden similar attractions that were absolutely garbage, but this, I would have ridden it again if I had the time. It helps that it's a smaller layout, so there's not as much room for error, but I really enjoyed the 2 inversions. It might not be the most creative and interesting layout by today's standards, but don't overlook this coaster because I think a lot of you would be surprised by how it rides. Number 3, Speed Monster, opened in 2006. Of all the roller coasters I rode on my most recent trip to Europe, this is the one I was underwhelmed by the most. Does that mean it's a bad ride? Absolutely not. But I think when you look at it, it appears to be this imposing thrill ride, when in actuality, it's teetering on that family coaster level. A ride I can compare it to that a lot of people also complain about is Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. I for one have always loved that coaster, but it seems like a lot of coaster enthusiasts don't care for it, as they think it's forestless and doesn't do a whole lot. But Speed Monster is a whole notch tamer than that thing. When you hear 56 mph hydraulic launch and see those sharp twisted airtime hills, you think it's going to be a pretty crazy ride. However, the forces were all very underwhelming, and for a coaster named Speed Monster, you don't exactly feel the speed a whole lot either. The 2 elements I'd say are exempt from this are the Norwegian loop and final corkscrew. Those are the only parts that I would say are great. But the ride is also extremely smooth, which I appreciate. Overall, I think I would have enjoyed Speed Monster a lot more if I went in with the right expectations. If you're coming here expecting a high-intensity coaster, you'll likely walk away disappointed as I was, but if you anticipate a family thrill ride, it is a solid ride experience. Number 2, Thunder Coaster, opened in 2001. I mentioned Vekoma earlier and how they have some very popular coaster models, but they only ever built 3 wooden roller coasters, and only 2 of them remain. Between those, Thunder Coaster easily has the most intense layout, and I think if you're looking at it based off of just its elements and forces, it's by far the best. But man, I was surprised by just how rough this thing is. Back in 2015, they replaced the old trains with timber liners from the Gravity Group, and those clearly didn't mesh well with Vekoma's track work. It's definitely a fun ride, don't get me wrong, but you'll get a beating in the process. It reminds me a lot of Hades 360 at Mount Olympus in Wisconsin. That's another ride I thought had a superb layout, but was just ungodly rough. If Thunder Coaster were smooth, it would almost certainly be my #1 ride in the park. But I'll still try to look past that because the forces are very solid. There's a really whippy twisting drop in the back row, lots of airtime hills, and some lateral heavy turns. Get your Advil ready and try to enjoy this awesome wooden coaster layout. #1, Storm the Dragon Legend, opened in 2023. The park's newest roller coaster filled some much needed gaps in their lineup. It gave them a coaster where you sit under the track with multiple launches, and it even goes backwards to round things out. The unique attraction was manufactured by Gerstlauer and was their first infinity inverted coaster. With it being a prototype, you could definitely see that this thing has its flaws for sure. The biggest example being, despite the ride being brand new, it's not the smoothest experience at all. I really wish there was a way to fix that because the layout on Storm is awesome. The 3 launches build up quite a bit of speed, and then you shoot up into your first of 3 very whippy inversions. These are all variants of the dive loop, which I was worried would feel a bit repetitive, but I actually walked away thinking they felt different and were lots of fun. But easily the highlight of this coaster is the speed hill that delivers proper ejector airtime on an invert. That's an extremely uncommon sensation when you're hanging under the track, and I loved it. The other main downside with this coaster is it is a pretty short experience at just 1,100 feet in length. Now, the 3 launches do help with that, but I would have loved to see them launch you through the entire layout twice, like Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove in New Jersey. So my overall thoughts are, while yes, this is the best roller coaster at TusenFryd and in Norway, it's still an objectively flawed experience, and I wouldn't give it anything more than a 7.5 out of 10. Admittedly, for a park with 8 roller coasters, I think I was a bit underwhelmed by their lineup. Even after Storm, I felt like they were missing a true standout ride, and the filler attractions aren't anything special. But I'd still recommend a visit nonetheless because the coasters are at least unique, and the park itself is very charming. But let me know in the comments if you've been to TusenFryd what you thought of it and how you'd rank their coasters. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.